which panels you haven't been participating at, because she's been really, really very popular at this event. And I'll say just a couple of words about Carla, investigative journalist with Mongo Bay, Brazil, first Brazilian woman, first Latin American woman who has become a member of the board of directors for the Society of Environmental Journalists. So well done, Carla. We are proud of you. Carla has some other positions, but she's also won a lot of awards. And we just heard today that based on her stories, there is an installation here, but you will tell us more about it. So Carla, the floor is yours. Tell us what you do as a journalist to make sure that there are all voices included in your stories when you talk about environmental changes and progress. Let's hope there is some progress as well. Carla, 5 minutes is yours.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm an investigative reporter from Mongo Bay. Mostly of my work is based on the Amazon rainforest. I cover a lot indigenous peoples and traditional communities in Brazil. So I always make sure to give their voice in my stories. I had even cases where I hired indigenous filmmakers and photographers to be part of my project, and they were paid as a regular contributor. One thing that I did at Mongo Bay, for example, when we brought an indigenous filmmaker to be a contributor, it was in the middle of the pandemic. We couldn't travel. A fellow colleague had a story. He had already footage, but she didn't speak Portuguese, and then I brought him as a contributor. I sent all the material to be translated into Portuguese. And so that's how I see, because there's a lot of indigenous communicators in local communities doing great content, and we really need to bring these voices to journalism, because usually there is a kind of hierarchy. Okay, the sources, the researchers, government, experts, but the local communities, they have knowledge at the same level. We can't just deconsider it because they didn't go to academia. No, there's several types of knowledge, and so that's what I try to bring to my investigations, that I investigate a lot of supply chains and the impact of environmental issues and climate change on indigenous people. Several of my pieces have been used in court cases and help directly the community to kind of compensate these damages that are done there. And more recently, I had my first experience working with artists, thanks to an invitation by UNESCO that they ran this really great initiative, have investigative journalists working with artists from Chile. And there is an installation at the plenary there on the left. I invite you all to go there. And then it was a really creative process that my investigation was done already, but then we had meetings discussing the concept. I gave some tips, the things that I thought would be great to convey, and then it's really heartwarming, and that's something that I'd like to do more and more for sure, because to really convey the message about climate change, we need to think about different storytelling. I write long pieces of investigative reporting, but not everyone will read that. It has an importance, especially for court cases and for policymakers and decision makers, but we also need to consider the difference of our audience. People have different ways to consume news, and there is our duty to understand and produce content to reach them.
And Carla, what is your targeted audience? Is it members of the public or decision makers? Who is your ideal consumer?
Well, Mongo Bay is a 25-year-old nonprofit news organization just focused on the environment. We have people everywhere working remotely. The majority of the audience was like scientists, people who really are more on the environmental field, but we have been broadening this audience because through partnerships with other outlets and also launching different, for example, short videos that for we saw there was this really audience is interested in this and different channels, for example, videos. We have really short form, like for 1 minute, and then longer ones. So we are really trying, we do surveys from our audience regularly and to see what they wanna, what they were interested in. We take it really serious, and based on that, we keep reshaping the way. And of course, you want to make changes, and like, ideally, we would like to try to reach everyone, but then we've been trying to see who our audience is, and then making some changes to make sure they get what they want.
Thanks, Carla. As you know, we will be talking about how to connect art and journalism, but I want to apologize. As you can see the pictures behind, some of our speakers, unfortunately, could not join. One was hospitalized, one got ill, but we've been lucky to bring some other speakers who will share their experience with us. So that's what this connection between what you see there and what you see on stage, except that I'm equally beautiful here on stage and there. Boris van Westering. Yes. I met Boris beginning of December at a conference in Amman in Jordan, organized by Arab Reporters Investigative Journalism, and I was impressed when I realized what Boris was doing, and Boris will tell you more what he's doing, but I just want to read what he wanted me to say about himself. He's committed to fixing the information ecosystem around climate change. And I would add that he is the most creative matchmaker when we talk about connecting art, journalism, policymakers, private sector, non-private sector. So, Boris, you've done something I didn't see before. You put journalists and artists together, an artist from a museum. Can you tell us more? And you have some pictures, some visuals to share with us. Do you want to share it now?
Thank you
Please.
for the introduction. I'm blushing. Thank you
Finally,
so much.
he's blushing.
Yeah, and I'm in good health, so that is also good. I thank actually UNESCO as well to be here in this amazing country, Chile, and I met so many beautiful, interesting people here that can tell so well the stories, and also about climate change, which is also affecting your country and your region. And so basically I wanted just to give you a little introduction where my clock started to tick a little bit more about the topic of climate change. And it's actually about the observation that journalists like yourself, who are doing so amazing work on uncovering climate stories, putting a lot of energy in it. But I was also looking at every year we have similar challenges, like forest fires, we have storms, we have all kinds of heat waves, and the reporting related to climate change is not very innovative, I have to say. Every time we have similar storytelling formats that is being used, and basically I sensed a bit of a fatigue of audiences on how can we absorb this kind of information. And it leads to disconnection, basically. So people will not read it anymore and will not absorb. And how shameful that is for all, you know, that you produce high quality information as a news outlet, and you want to create impact. And actually I was at the COP27 in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, and I was walking around, and I saw this crazy, 60,000 people talking to each other, and I thought, like, the stories that Carla and all the others are producing about how it's impacted, local communities are impacted. These kind of stories, they are not here. They are not told here. Why is it so? So we need to find new ways to bring storytelling to climate conferences. We need to find our audiences in a different way to to make them also read what good quality independent media are producing on this topic. And so I was talking to some brave investigative journalists from Arish who were there as well, and they said, you know, we also face troubles in getting our stories published in the media because we face a lot of backlash. Not all the accountability stories can be published. So we thought, like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna bring together artists and designers and with journalists, and to see that we can create maybe another kind of storytelling format that allows you to bring the stories to the COP28 the next year in Dubai. And every interesting new story starts with that people get enthusiastic around you, and I was very pleased that Rawan Daman, director of Arish, was willing to work with me and with investigative journalists from her team, and we collaborated with the Royal Academy of Arts and
Netherlands.
In the Netherlands, in The Hague, with the faculty non-linear narrative. And if you're watching, I hope that you guys will come here soon to work with the great minds of an artist here in Chile, because there are many. And I just wanted to highlight one of the stories that we made and that we could translate into an art exhibition, and it's the incredible work of Sophie Zieg and Hattie Wade and Christine Lavosi, 3 artists that have been collaborating with the journalist at the research phase. For 1 week they have been looking at the story, deconstructing it, and try to see how can we give a voice to nature. How can we give a voice to people that don't have a voice? And often nature doesn't have a voice, and how can you include it as a journalist, right? So, so they came about the story, which is a beautiful story about wildfires or forest fires in Morocco. And this is a story that actually is not a Moroccan story. It's a global story. It's about a story about how do we protect the forests from burning. And so they worked together with the investigative journalists, and they came, deconstructed it, and came on different art forms to tell the story about the forest, but also the local communities that were affected by the forest fires.
And there were many women, if I remember.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here you can see a little bit what art can do with journalistic material. And here you can see behind me is the art installation is beautifully done, where you see the ashes below representing the number of forest fires in that particular region for the last 10 years. And then the piece above is the wood, the log above it represents the forest that is still standing. And then the little red houses in it is another data set, is about what has been done after the forest has been burned. And often you see that hotels and properties have been constructed. And if you put it in one visual, then you will see, hey, these forests have been burning for a reason. They have not been protected for a reason. And maybe we should do better. And this is basically what we wanted to do. And here you can see also the representation of women. So there were different, it's a video, an installation, and another art piece that was the calligraphy. And it was used to maybe a conversation piece for people to stand still and then come back to the story again. And the journalists, they were completely amazed by it. 2 years of work.
We'll come back to your visuals, and I would like to hear from Carla what you think about, you know, doing using or spending 1 week doing one story. Can journalists allow themselves that much time for one story, or maybe you can? But we'll move now to the next. Thank you, Boris. To the next panelist, Todd Henry, who came to another idea and got closer to those who are being affected by climate changes. Todd Henry is with us online. He is based in Auckland, New Zealand, and he is what we can call, Todd, you are the what is the son-in-law of Pacific Island, Togo. And he's doing his PhD using actually photography to let the people affected by climate changes tell their story. Todd, the mic is yours.
Good morning. Good morning from Aotearoa, New Zealand, everyone, and thank you for having me on the panel today. Yeah, my name is Todd Henry. I'm originally from Pennsylvania in the United States, but I came to New Zealand in 2003 and sort of fell in love with this part of the world. Like Milica said, I'm a son-in-law of the Pacific. My wife is from Tonga, a small island, a couple hours flying north of New Zealand. It is if you read some of the literature about it, it's one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change, looking at a range of different factors. But it's a fascinating place to be, and it's, yeah, I guess on the front lines of many things. But the people there display a real sense of resilience and community coming together, dealing with the changes that they have to deal with in this part of the world. So, yeah, my background is in, well, many things. In undergrad, I studied anthropology, but I had a real interest in human-environment relationships, and I've always been interested in photography as something, just as a hobby. So I kind of put the two together, and I've always liked to take photos that show the reality of a situation, for better or worse. And over time, I developed my photography skills and put them together with my academic background, showcasing things on environment and human relationship, and even went into topics such as deportation. I did a lot of work with Vice New Zealand particularly, and just showing those. I guess it's a wider topic of human displacement, and I mean, that's one of my interests. And then I put that together with my interest with the human environment relationship, and was naturally led to climate change related studies and topics. So in my undergraduate degree, or in my master's study, I did a project in Tuvalu, which is another country. It's north of Fiji. It's one of the least visited countries on Earth. It's kind of hard to get to. You have to go to Fiji first, and then fly again a couple of hours north. And Tuvalu is a narrow, exposed island. Actually, a lot of you may have heard of it. It's been in the media a lot because it's been referenced as one of the first countries possibly to disappear because of climate change. So I had never been there, but I'd seen a lot of the visual narratives around it in different media online and so forth. And there was always a narrative making the local people look like victims, I guess you could say. Narratives of people standing in water. It would lead you to believe that everybody in Tuvalu has their bags packed and just needs a place to go. So I had never been there at this point, but I had spent a lot of time in Tonga, and knowing what I knew about the Tongan people and what I've seen of people working together and being resilient and overcoming challenges, I wanted to go to Tuvalu and see it for myself and shoot photos for myself in a project that was I called it a locally guided photography project. So what the local people, the way they live and the way they want to be represented is very different than the outsider's perspective in the media, looking, showcasing people almost as like a form of clickbait. But so I believe that images do have a lot of power to, when people see an image, when you read a story, it's one thing, but when you see images, it can hone the way you perceive something. So what we see, or what we find, what research shows, is if people see, media consumers see images that look like destruction and people, human suffering and so forth, it creates apathy. But if images of people are shown in a way that they're dealing with the challenges of climate change or anything else with dignity and resilience, it actually gives hope to the people who are reading these stories online and everything. But yeah, art it has a means to shift people's attitudes, I think, in a big way. So what I've done on my current project with my PhD is I'm working in Tonga, and I've gone one step further. Instead of me shooting the photos, I'm giving cameras to local people to represent their own reality in dealing with climate change and the ways that they overcome those challenges. But also, it kind of reveals their experiences in a way that what are they most concerned about at the moment? Because a lot of times what the media talks about isn't the number one concern of the people in these places. So there's some strong themes emerging with my project already. Food security, people's concerns about pollution, again, displacement. There are communities in Tonga that have had to be moved from one place to another. But people they're engaging in a different way when you give them the camera. The voice is completely theirs. It's not me interpreting anything. I mean, I know a lot about Tonga. I've spent a lot of time there, but ultimately I'm not from there. So I think it's important to always do things like this to give people.
You are getting us really excited. We want to see the photos. Get us there.
Oh, okay.
Show us the photos.
I believe that you guys were going to put them on your end. Is that?
I expected that there should be. So can technicians help us see the photos, please?
Yes, we do.
Yep.
Yep. There we go. Cool. Yeah, if you go back to that other slide, the one just before that. Yeah, that's Tuvalu there. Most of the island looks like that's thin ribbon of the island, and then just on the map there, that's where Tuvalu is. You can go to the next slide, please. And this here is one of the visual narratives that I was referencing. People standing in water. If you Google Tuvalu, it'll bring a lot of things like that up. And sorry, I can't see what slides you're on there. Oh yeah, focus on this part of the island, the very narrow parts where they have king tides and so forth. You can keep moving. I'll just talk as you go. Yep. And this is from my locally guided photography project. These kids were out cleaning up waste, and then that's the landfill where they organize things very, very meticulously. So there are serious problems in Tuvalu, but the people live there with dignity and resilience that I think the whole world can learn from. Yep. Some guys drinking kava, a local drink. This is Tonga, a little bit southeast of where Tuvalu is. And these are from my photos. It's from a cyclone, surface flooding, which is common. And these are some food security projects that the locals work on together. And this photo here, I wanted to showcase the guy on the left. They use technology a lot to overcome challenges. He has some breadfruit flour there at a food processing facility. And on the right, they still uphold their traditional handicrafts and language and everything. So, yep.
Todd, we'll come back to you, particularly to share with us what you learn, traditional ecological knowledge which indigenous people in Pacific Islands have and which might be useful to the Western scientists. We'll come back to you with that. I want to move now to Reyen Repayen. I hope I'm pronouncing well your name, who is a co-founder of a non-governmental organization, which in English is called Youth and Biodiversity, but I'd like you to say it in your mother tongue. Mapuche and share with us your experience in educating young people of your community on different issues. The floor is yours.
Un saludo a todos ustedes. Mari Compuche, Mari Compulamien, Quiñe Poyen Chalina, Yupilen Tañi Piuque, Ñira Kizuam, Tragupa Intufachi Tragun, Tufachi Mapu. En español, y aquí con mi compañera que me va a ayudar a traducir, les saludaba muy cariñosamente y agradecida de este espacio, en donde podemos hablar de una realidad que no se cuenta muchas veces.
Hi everyone. In Spanish, I was thanking you all for being here, thanking my friend here who is helping with the translation, and giving you all a warm welcome to this event where we're going to be talking about the reality that not always is being talked in these kind of spaces.
La organización en la que yo participo hace ya un tiempo, que soy cofundadora, se llama Huechequecheca y Trofilmonien, una organización de jóvenes indígenas que hemos estado trabajando respecto al Acuerdo de Escazú desde el año 2020 y a día de hoy hemos estado instando a hablar de medio ambiente respecto a pueblos indígenas.
The organization that I'm part of and that I co-founded is Youth on Biodiversity in English, but that name in Mapudungun. And we've been working since 2020 for the Escazú Agreement and to empower indigenous youth on environmental issues.
Para aquellos que es primera vez en Chile, yo soy mapuche, un pueblo que ha resistido hace más de 500 años, tanto en el estado de Chile como en Argentina.
For those who is their first time in Chile, I am Mapuche, which is an indigenous community that has been resisting for over 300 years to the colonization in Chile and Argentina.
Somos un pueblo que resiste en lengua, que resiste en cultura y así también en proteger los mismos territorios.
We are the people who resist in his language, in culture, and that way we can protect our territories and our land.
Justamente hablando de comunicación, desde hace ya mucho tiempo con Cristóbal Colón hemos tenido que desmentir incluso la historia de lo que son los pueblos indígenas.
When talking about communication, we have to remind Christopher Columbus. Since him, we've been having to rewrite our stories and always have to retell our story in indigenous communities and who we are and what we do.
En Chile, al menos ser indígena es igual a ser invisible. Entonces, si uno incluso le pregunta a la gente que es chilena, muchos no van a saber ni siquiera cuántos pueblos están reconocidos en Chile.
In Chile, being indigenous, it's the same as being invisible. Even if you ask a Chilean on the street about indigenous people, they probably won't be able to tell you how many of those are recognized by the government.
Este es un sentimiento que se comparte con hermanos de otros pueblos, en donde como juventudes no somos visibles. Si ya es difícil para nuestros padres, hermanos, mayores, para nosotros como juventudes y niñeces es aún más visible poder estar en estos espacios.
This is a shared feeling between youth from different indigenous communities because if for our fathers, mothers, or older people from the community, it's hard to be in these kind of spaces, for us as young indigenous people, it's even harder.
Se ha creado una realidad en donde quizás lo indígena solamente se hace visible cuando ocurre un hecho de violencia en donde solamente el indígena es violento con el no indígena.
They created a reality where the indigenous itself, it's only being shared when something violent happens, where there's a conflict on there, and to separate the indigenous thing for the non-indigenous people, and that's a reality in Chile about violence and indigenous communities, specifically the Mapuche.
Incluso si hablamos de defensores ambientales, hay una diferencia para aquel que la defiende sin movilizarse, desde la comodidad del hogar, o el que se pone a disposición en su cuerpo para que no se pasen a llevar los derechos de los pueblos indígenas en sus territorios.
Even when talking about environmental defenders, there's a difference of those who decide defend from the commodity of their houses, not being able to go outside or protest, and those who put their bodies out there to protest and to defend our rights as indigenous communities.
Entonces es muy normal de que muchos de nosotros no sepamos realmente lo que está pasando en la realidad que no muestran los medios hegemónicos de comunicación.
Because of that, it's really normal that we don't know what's really happening on the territories because the normal media, it's not talking about it, it's not sharing the truth behind the news.
Para la gente que vive aquí en Chile, muchos de ellos no conocen ni cerca lo que viven las niñeces en sus territorios, en donde se encuentran coartados por una presencia muy alta de policía estatal.
For those who live in Chile, most of you maybe don't even know the reality that youth and kids are now living in the territories in the land where they are constantly being threatened by the police in their territories yes.
Rayan, we will come back to you. I want you to comment what you heard from Carla, how Carla as a journalist covered the issues of ecological problems impacting indigenous communities, whether you see the role of journalists that way or what you expect from journalists.
Cuando queremos comunicar algo es necesario mostrar qué es lo que ocurre desde esta otra vereda que no tiene las mismas herramientas para hacerse visible.
When we want to communicate something, we want to share what's happening in the other side when we don't have the tools to share and to make visible what's really happening in the communities.
Nos encontramos en donde hay una barrera entre lo que pasa realmente, el medio de comunicación y lo que le llega a la gente.
We find this barrier between what really happens, the media, and what really the people gets after sharing the information.
Entonces el rol del periodista como tal es una herramienta más de las comunidades para visibilizar lo que ocurre en sus territorios.
Because of that, the role of the journalist itself, it's one tool more for the community to really share the reality that's happening in the territories.
Entonces lo que pasa aquí en Chile es que nosotros como jóvenes tenemos que ser periodistas.
Because of that, what happens here in Chile is that we as youth have to be the journalists.
Entonces, como no tenemos acceso a los medios masivos de comunicación, tenemos acceso a Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. Entonces, esas herramientas al final son nuestro medio para hacer prensa.
As we don't have the access to the massive media, different, like, the media, we have to use another tools as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter to communicate what happens to us.
We'll come back to you. We have, Carla wants to ask you a question, but I'd like to go to Constanza Daunak from FEMA NGO to share with us your experience, what you do through your organization to help marginalized communities affected by climate changes, and then we'll make a round with the all panelists.
Okay, thank you. Well, I work in FEMA NGO. We are an NGO that does legal advice to communities. So, the main way that we work is that the community comes to us with their problem, and our team is able to help them. It is all in environmental issues. It's a super specialized team that works in 3 areas, like advocacy, investigation, and the legal advice, and they follow the cases since the beginning to the end. And it could be a really long process. And the thing that what we see every day is the same as Rayen is just being related, telling us now. That is something that is happening with Mapuche's community, with all the indigenous communities, and with all the communities that are impacted by projects in their lives that affects the environment where they are living. So because there is a huge unbalance in between the powers from the communities to the investors, even the state. So take their voices out and show how one or other project is impacting their life, it is always a huge difficulty. And sometimes or many times there have been cases where the communities had told before what will be happen in the future, and at the end that is exactly what happens. And the state, the governments, the politics, the powers, all looks that as a surprise, and was not. And the reality, the real thing is that was told, and nobody wanted to hear and see and follow a correct process. So, and everything is what is happening in Chile is put in terms of economic. So, whether something it is good for the development of the country in economic terms, there is the route that the country should follow, and there's no real approaches with environmental regards and the thing that when we talk about climate change is so big. So when we talk about climate change, we are talking about everything and about nothing. And there is the big issue that we are facing now, because climate change is a huge ill with a lot of symptoms, and we need to fight every symptom. And when you are trying not to face that reality and saying that something has not impact, and what the communities that live in some places, it's not true or is not something that could be shown, you are not taking care of that symptoms.
Thank you. Carla, you wanted to ask Rayan something. Microphone, your microphone is not working. Take this one.
Sorry. No, I would like to tell you that I hear you complaining about several media outlets who don't really give voice to indigenous people. But on the other hand, there are several news outlets where the indigenous voice is a high priority. And I can tell you that if you try to talk to Mongabe, you'll be heard. And in my case, for example, I've been covering this since 2017. And I built a relationship of trust with the indigenous people I cover. Like, they have my direct contact, as I think like in Brazil, Chile, the WhatsApp is the easiest way. It doesn't require really a high quality internet. And I've written several stories, including on the weekend, where they were having attacks in the Amazon. The indigenous people reach out to me. It's happening, send me photos, send me video, and I immediately started working on the story. And I let the authorities know what's happening there. So I like to tell you this, that there is hope, and there are several. I'm happy to help you, giving you examples.
Exchange the phone numbers to start with.
And just one other thing, as you said, about invisibility, and this happens in several places. And I published a project in 2021 that it was exactly this. It was a project about indigenous people in Brazilian cities. And my goal was really to shock people in a way that in Rio, in São Paulo, there are a lot of indigenous people. And the headline of the first story was, "We are made invisible." That story had a great impact, and it was used in a book.
Thanks, Carla. Boris, you want to add something, and I would like to go back to Todd.
Yeah, and maybe I refer also back to Todd, because he used the dominant frames, how people are portrayed as victims. And you are also looking at how to cure the disease rather the symptoms.
You have 10 minutes.
And I do believe, and I want to bring it back to the role of journalists, because I do feel that in the information ecosystem where we are right now around climate change, we as media outlets do not understand the power relations that are trying to influence and take control over the narratives. And that's kind of, it's almost that if you do not understand the power dimension between why certain narratives are pushed as you being a victim or you not being heard, you being marginalized, it's because there are certain interests there. And as a journalist in a media outlet, you need to strategize on climate storytelling because it's not just another topic. It is a power tool used by many to influence and to get the narrative on their side. And you as a media outlet need to find your own strategic approach. How will you cover the climate story? How can we make sure that marginalized voices are included? And how can we search for accountability without losing our audiences? Because they require different storytelling approaches. And this is why art and design and artists need to be included, that pay reference and tribute also to cultural references from specific tribes and backgrounds, or speaking the language of different people. We need to speak each other's language. And this can only be done if you strategize as a newsroom, if you make sure that people are on board and trained enough, get the time, and invite indigenous people to your newsroom. Invite artists in your newsroom in a storytelling experience, and then you will see what will come out of it.
Thanks, Boris. We have 9 minutes. Todd, you mentioned when we were talking about when preparing this panel that there is traditional ecological knowledge among people, indigenous people of Pacific Islands, which can help, as I already said, Western scientists. Can you elaborate on this quickly, and then we'll go to the audience if there is anything you would like to share with us. Todd, please.
Yep, sure. I think there are things that people do to, overcome challenges and things that is, like in Tonga, they would just say it's the Tongan way, and it's normal for them. But when we engage with people, especially on like a project with what I'm doing with the cameras, it allows them to showcase that. And when I see something in the photos, we can discuss it, and it turns out, oh, this is something we've always planted food this way, or we've adapted this this certain way. But I think in the Pacific, one of the biggest things that we can learn in terms of the local knowledge and the local culture is the way that people work together as a community. There's not really an individual mindset in Tonga. Everybody shares everything. Personal ownership of items is very different than the way they are in Western countries. So there's a whole range of things from food production adaptation or living together as communities that we can learn from as outsiders. That's often overlooked in media or in academic research sometimes as well.
Thanks, Todd. So the floor is yours now if anyone wants to share. I know there is Isabella Ponce from Ecuador, GK City. You won an El País Award for your stories, and you had 4 women interviewed in that story which won the award. Can you share your experience with us? Do you recognize what Rayan told us? Do you follow this kind of instructions or advices?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Milica. So the story is about 4 women who live in a desert in Ecuador, in the south of Ecuador, that is very little known. Like if you talk about Ecuador, no one will believe there's a desert. It's not that small desert, but there I told the story of these 4 women that are adapting to climate change. And I was thinking about what you all said, how not to portray as victims, but as how they are empowered, are unenduring, and even though
they don't actually know exactly what climate change is, even though they're living it like every day with their crops and with their work. And it's, I would say, I don't want to say like positive or negative story, but it's portraying in a different way. And I think I agree absolutely on not the victim side of this, but trying to tell these stories that also can be helpful for other communities. So yeah, I think, and thank you for the space.
Thanks, Isabella. I've been just told that professor artist who did his installation based on Carla's stories with us. Chris, would you like to share?
There's another question in between.
Sorry, I couldn't see it. Yeah, okay, let's start, Chris, and then we'll go to the question. I do apologize, I didn't see. Yeah.
Should I go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Frederick Mujera. I'm
Don't
from
give the
Uganda. When we write about these stories, the stories about the indigenous communities, local communities, do the local communities read these stories? Do they watch? Do they know how we represent them in these stories? We tried to find out at my project. We have a project called Infonet. It's a geojournalism project. So we tell stories using data generated by, earth sciences. So we wanted to find out. So we take stories back to the communities and do exhibitions. So you do like a big story, you do exhibitions, you have photos, and then people, indigenous communities, see themselves in the stories, where you were, where you went and interviewed. So then they see themselves in the stories and they are like, wow, this is John, this is Henry, I didn't know. Then they actually say, okay, come back, we give you the stories. We actually thought you were a spy when you were here. Come back, we give you the right story. So they feel happy. In actual sense, the stories we write, where do they live? Do they live in newspapers, on TV? They actually live where they are made in the community. So they need to go back. And then the indigenous communities will be very happy when they see themselves in the stories.
Thanks. This is Frederick from Uganda, from Water Project, correct? Yeah, thank you. We have 1 more minute. We want to hear the professor, please, and then I'd like all of you 1 minute positive, if possible, message for all of us. Chris, please.
Hi everyone. I'm here with Katiuska. We're both from the University of Chile, of the School of Theater, Theater Design. And well, we participate in this creation based on the paper by Carla with the palm oil investigation, and showing this, revealing all these problems that the vulnerability of the community that lives there, and all the industry that's part of what we consume as products that are of daily use and everything else, but we don't visualize all the terrible things that the creation of these products give to some people. You talk a lot of invisibility and this kind of people, that a little group of groups that are not considered in this process of this huge machine of consumption that we are, and this how we affect the planet. Our installation talks about that, talks about how the planet is our natural supermarket, and now with our own supermarket of the industrialization, we contaminate our natural supermarket, and it's that like the real concept behind all.
And Chris, the installation is in the space where opening plenary session happens, so everyone is welcome to see it. Thanks, Chris. Let's start with the Rayan microphone. Can we have 15 seconds each, final word, if possible? Some positive lessons we learned from each other here. Do we bring something good from here?
Quiero quedar y comunicar de que decir lo que pasa es un derecho humano. Y decir cómo es que queremos estar es parte del derecho de la autodeterminación y la libre determinación de los pueblos indígenas, para que así nadie llegue a hablar por nosotros, sino que hablemos nosotros.
I want to communicate that the right to say what's happening, it's a right, and to communicate as our reality, it's an expression of the self-determination right, and only in that way we can communicate by ourselves what's happening in our realities and not have everyone else talk about us but without us.
Thanks, Rayan. Constanza? Sorry, Carla has to leave, so Carla, you go. Carla has another panel. 15 seconds and we are done. Yeah.
The key message to me is let's work together. Let's broaden our view about journalism, about to tell the stories. Let's work more close to the communities with artists, photographers, documentary filmmakers, so that working together we're stronger to fight against climate change and environmental issues in the world.
Thanks, Carla.
My mic is working, I think.
You go. Give me the mic.
But thank you. We
Thank
have
you,
to
Carla.
stop, I know, but I will be very short. I think the climate crisis is an opportunity for journalism to innovate their storytelling. And by combining it with artists, designers, with gamers, with musicians, with influencers, with indigenous people, communities, come out of your bubble, journalists. Step out of your bubble and try to make new stories together.
Thanks. Boris, Constanza, Todd, and we are done.
Okay.
Constanza.
My message is that even when everything looks that it's against us and it is difficult, there are things happening. There's people doing with their own media. They are telling what is happening.
We are moving forward.
We are moving forward.
Well done. Thanks, Constanza. Todd?
Yeah, I think it's encouraging that it's very clear that people want to work with indigenous communities to tell the truth. And it's also encouraging that, we want to learn from them what knowledge they have. And I don't think it's always been that way. So it's an encouraging development as things move forward.
Get out of a bubble. Each of us out of our bubble. That's the message I got from here. Thank you very much. Thank you those online. Thank you. All the best. Thank you. Thank you.